Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. Let us continue with the chapter Control and Coordination. So in this control and coordination, we are continuously studying about the system, that is nervous system. Initially we explained that this control and coordination in animals or in the higher organisms is taking place in two different ways. It is through the nervous system and through the hormonal system. But as far as nervous system is concerned, so we had taken the example of the human being and we are studying about it continuously. So basically this nervous system here is comprised of various nerves, brain and the spinal cord. And according to its function, it is further classified as the central nervous system, peripheral nervous system and autonomic nervous system. In the previous session, we had ended with the central nervous system. So just we will have a review of that and then we will continue with the peripheral nervous system. So this central nervous system, it is actually known as the decision making center. It is the central part of the body, or we can say it is the directing unit of our system. In this particular system, we are actually able to control the various processes. We are able to put some common sense to various things. It is the intelligence center, the interpretation center, and then the command is given according to a particular message which is received here. So in this case, it is comprised of two main parts, that is brain and the spinal cord. So this brain is further divided into three regions, that is forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. So forebrain is associated with what? Basically it is having cerebrum, olfactory lobes and the diencephalon. Right. Now these parts or this particular part of the brain is actually associated with the we can say receiving the messages from various sense organs, interpreting it and then performing or taking a particular action. The command is given to a particular organ and then the action is taken here. So the next part is the midbrain. This midbrain is it is a link between the forebrain and the hindbrain. So it is comprised of some small nerves which is establishing a communication between the forebrain and the hindbrain. Next, besides this, it is even having a region which is associated with some visual interpretations or auditory interpretation. That means it is helping in providing some reflexes to the visual and the auditory stimulus. The next is a hindbrain, is usually involved in the control of various involuntary and the voluntary actions. Which type of voluntary actions? Let us say for example, maintenance of your posture, body posture or the balance, right? Then medulla oblongata, associated with the control of the involuntary action like sneezing, vomiting, your heartbeat, your blood pressure, all that contractions and relaxations are actually controlled by the medulla oblongata. Then pons, it is associated with the regulation of the respiration process. So this is how the voluntary as well as involuntary actions of the body, they are controlled by the brain. Now further, the spinal cord is the next part of the central nervous system, which gives out or from where the 31 pairs of nerves are arising, and these are linked with the somatic as well as the visceral parts of the body. And if it is covering this much part of the body, then you must understand that what an important structure is it. Right? Even a section of this cord is pressed, we can suffer from the very serious problems. So this is why the central nervous system it is named as a central nervous system, because it is the basic command controlling unit. The next system of next type of nervous system is the peripheral nervous system. So this peripheral nervous system, it is basically comprised of the nerves all of the nerves which are arising from the central nervous system, they are constituting the peripheral nervous system. So if these nerves are arising from the central nervous system, then you can see there is a direct link between the PNS and the CNS. They are not independent of each other. Each part is able to function only when there is a proper link between these different parts. So this peripheral is named so, there is a specific reason behind this. This periphery, what does it mean? A body line, isn't it? A boundary. So the boundary of our body is what? The entire sections like hands, limbs, stomach, everything, right? All these things, up to a boundary, up to the external part of the body, they are connected with the central nervous system. And how this connection is set up? It is by the nerves. So these nerves, they are helping in maintaining a communication between the peripheral nervous system or the different body parts or the different muscles of the body with what? With the central nervous system. So in short, we can say that these nerves, they help in relaying the impulses. Which impulses? The one or the electrical impulses or the nerve impulses to and from the CNS. What does it mean, to and from? That means from body parts to the CNS, that is central nervous system. For example, any body region you can say. For example, if you are hungry, so what is there? It is involving your stomach, right? So the message is to be conveyed to the central nervous system. So it is to CNS. So body parts to CNS. Besides this, CNS will give a command. It will help you that, yeah, you are hungry. That means you need to eat something. So that is a command. Your hands will move, you will search the things and you will eat properly, and then the digestion will begin. So that is the message which is further, or the command which is given by the CNS. So the receiving and then conveying, interpretation is made by CNS. But further the response is to be given. So that response is the function of the peripheral nervous system. Initially the stimulus was conveyed and then the message was conveyed, but then your body movement, how this conveying is taking place or how the transmittance is taking place, that is the major function of the peripheral nervous system. Now we said that these impulses are either relayed, they are transmitted to the CNS or from the CNS. That means there must be some difference between these nerves which are conveying the messages from different parts here, organs to central nervous or from central nervous system to the different body parts. These are not a single way track. There is no like one way track is not there. I'm sorry, it is not a two-way track. Same nerve is not serving for the different functions. There are different types of nerves. Depending upon this function, that in which direction the impulse has been transmitted, that on that basis there are different types of nerves. What are they? They are the sensory nerves, then motor nerves and relaying nerves. What these sensory, motor, relaying means? So let's find it out. See here, this diagram is explaining these different types of nerves. The sensory nerves, what are they? They are also known as receptor nerve. So from these two terms, that is sensory and the receptor, it must be quite easy for you to understand, as we had already done also. So you can now find out that what these nerves are functioning for, meant for. Sensory, the one which is directly associated with the sense organs. Sense means it is going to recognize a particular stimulus. So are these nerves, they are sensing something or they are receiving the things? Basically they are, the receptors are present in the sense organs. So these nerves, they are receiving the message from those particular receptors present in the sense organs. And then if they are receiving it from these sense organ, then it must be conveyed to which part? To the central nervous system. So those nerves which are transmitting the impulse from the sense organs to the nervous system is known as the sensory or the receptor nerve. Motor or effector, what does it mean? It means the reverse of the previous one. That means effector is the target tissue or the organ which is now further going to respond to a particular thing. So those nerves which are connecting the brain with the target tissues, or your we can say your brain with the particular body organ, and then it is commanding it to so as to take a particular action. Such type of nerves are known as motor or the effector nerves. Then comes the relaying nerves or the connector nerve. See, these are located in different, they must be arising from different part, and they are linked with the brain or the spinal cord at different location. So message is to be conveyed here. They should, if a particular action is to be taken, there should be a link between the sensory and the motor nerves also. So that part is basically performed by the connector nerve, and thus they are also known as the relaying nerve. They relay it. The message is conveyed to the next part and then it is transferred further. So this interconnection between these two nerves is known, they are known as the relaying nerves or the connector nerves. Then there are some nerves in our body which are having the dual action. That means they can serve as the sensory nerves as well as the motor nerves. Both functions are performed by the same nerve. So such type of nerves are known as the mixed nerves. So the sensory, they always receive the signal and then they convey it in one direction to the brain or the spinal cord. Motor, it is transmitting message from the control unit to the effector or the muscular part of the body. Now of course this effector is it is linked with the muscular movement only. The action whatever you are taking place is going to involve the some muscular movement, and this is why it is called as the effector muscular part of the body. Now message could be conveyed, it is conveyed to the central nervous system, and what the central nervous system is known as, it is the control center or the decision making center, and it involves what? Brain or the spinal cord. So we are putting here or here because motor, which is conveying the message to the brain or to the spinal cord, is going to be different. So it is either sending it to the brain from the brain, or it is sending the message from the spinal cord. The next is the relaying, which is the link between the sensory and the motor nerves. And mixed, of course, they are those which are serving as both, like sensory and the motor nerves. Now there are another kind of nerve also. They are also classified on the basis of their origin or the part of the central nervous system with which it is associated or it is arising. So on this basis, the nerves can be either cranial nerves or they can be spinal nerves. So these cranial nerves, they arise from the brain and they spread throughout the head region. So this generally the word cranial, wherever it is used, it is actually linked with or it is associated with the brain part. Like skull. Skull is known as the cranium box. Then we can say different membrane present over there, cranial meninges, cranial membranes. So all those nerves which are associated directly with the brain in the head region, they are known as the cranial nerves. What is the number of these nerves? There are 12 pairs of the cranial nerves, and they are helping in different functions related to this upper part of the body. Now these nerves which are arising here, it can be like sensory or motor or mixed. It is not so that they have a specific property. They are having different transmittance way. So they are either sensory or they can be motor. So we can see some examples here. Sensory nerves, they are olfactory, the one which helps in the in sending the messages related to the olfactory receptors. So they help in identifying some aroma or the smell. Then like optic nerves, these will help in sending the message from the photoreceptors to the occipital region. Occipital region, you remember, the one which is the visual reception, right? Where is it located? It is in the brain, or we can say it is towards the posterior side of the brain. It is a part of forebrain. Then the auditory functions, right? They are associated with what? With the temporal region of the cerebrum. Besides, it is also linked with what? With various the part of the midbrain from where the action is to be taken. But reception is through the sensory nerves. Besides this, there are some motor nerves. We can take some example like hypoglossal. These hypoglossal nerves, they are actually helping in the movement of the tongue. You are moving your tongue in various direction, so that is under the control of the hypoglossal hypoglossal nerve. Then another type is mixed. There are various nerves which are having the dual function, like taste. They can receive the message on the taste bud. The taste buds, they are having these particular receptors, right? Where they are located? In the tongue. And what is the function? They receive the taste and then convey the message to the brain. And further, what type of taste it is? You will give the expression wow, or you will just make a very bad sort of expression that what is this. So all that is under the control of these, they are performed by these particular mixed nerves. So this is how the cranial nerves are actually associated with your head part. And then the next type of nerves are spinal nerves. So spinal nerves, they arise from the spinal cord. And how many pairs are there? There are 31 pairs in the human beings. And they are actually associated, or they are arising from different parts of your spinal cord. They are arising from there, and they are linked with the different parts of the body. Like it could be thoracic or cervical, or it can be lumbar part or the sacral. So it is divided into it is running along this length and is controlling the functions associated with those parts of the body. So these nerves, they are also of two types, like they can be sensory or a motor nerve. Sensory will help in receiving the message from different parts and will convey the message to the spinal cord. Similarly, the motor nerve, which will arise from here, is further spreaded into different tissues of the body, and there it is transmitting the message so as to take the action. Now this is all about the peripheral nervous system. The next system is the autonomic nervous system. Let us find out what does it mean and how is it functioning. So as the name is suggesting, this autonomic nervous system, which it is operating in an involuntary manner or in the automatic manner, and is usually linked with the visceral parts of the body. So therefore it is also known as the visceral nervous system. The most important point is that it is controlling the various functions of the internal organs of the body, the one which is present in the visceral part or in the body cavity, and then they are functioning in maintaining the normal rate of each particular function. The different nerves are arising and from either side, and they are actually functioning so as to control these particular functions. They help in maintaining the balance between the different up and bottom side of these particular rates. So depending upon this, they are divided into two parts, that is a sympathetic system and parasympathetic system. Sympathetic means it helps in accelerating the rate of particular function, whereas the acceleration should be in control and it should be brought down to a normal limit. So that further bringing it down is the function of the parasympathetic system. If parasympathetic is taking place earlier, then it has to bring down to higher level further. So this sympathetic and parasympathetic, they are working together and they help in maintaining the balance of a particular function. They maintain the rate of a particular process. We can summarize some of the functions here. For example, we said that the spinal cord is linked with different organs of the body through the sensory and the motor nerves. So let us find out which organs are actually linked here and how they are functioning. So let us say, for example, if the organ is heart, then if sympathetic system is working, then what should be the role of the sympathetic system? It is going to increase the contraction and the contraction over there. And you know, if the contraction is increased, what will happen? The rate of heartbeat is going to increase. More contraction and then more relaxation should be there. So if contraction is so high, it has to bring down to the normal rate. So contraction is the function of sympathetic and relaxation is the function of the parasympathetic system. And this is how the rate of heartbeat is actually maintained. Then the blood vessels, these blood vessels, they are flowing the blood, isn't it? And when this blood is flowing, there is some pressure maintained. There is always some constriction in the vessels, wall of these blood vessels, due to which the blood is it is going to flow in the forward direction. Now, if it remains constricted, then what will happen? The blood pressure is going to increase, and that does not happen all the time, isn't it? How? Because once it constricts, at the other side it is going to dilate. So constriction is the function of the sympathetic system, and dilation is a function of the parasympathetic system. Then the lungs, the dilation of bronchi and the constriction. Then eyes, the pupil, it can dilate or constrict. So as these, we can say, like if these bronchi dilates, what will happen? Air can fill inside. Then if it remains dilated, then how the exhalation will take place? So on the other hand, parasympathetic will help in this type of constriction, so that bronchi can remove out the air in the outer side. Similarly, the pupil, you can change this diameter of your eyes, isn't it? You can open it widely, and if it opens widely once, it has to bring down to normal position. So this is how the pupil or the different functions are performed here. The other parts involved are like stomach. What is the major function of stomach? Digestion of protein. But how it is taking place? It is possible because of the gastric juice. So this gastric juice, if it is continuously secreted, what will happen? In that case, definitely a problem will arise, as it may increase the level of acid in the stomach, and if it is not needed, of course it has to be controlled over there. So this particular sympathetic is going to inhibit the secretion, and whereas when it is required, it will be stimulated by the parasympathetic system. Salivary glands, the secretion is not taking all the time. The secretion is actually controlled by these two functions, that is parasympathetic and the sympathetic. Similarly, the urinary bladder, relaxation is under the control of sympathetic system and contraction is under the control of the parasympathetic system. Now this actually, if this proper relaxation and contraction of urinary opening or the urinary bladder is not taking place, there is going to be the problem linked with the urine release, that is micturition. So when the muscles relaxes, there is going to be an outflow. The micturition will take place. Urine is released out, right? And if it is relaxed all the time, there will be the continuous outflow of the urine, which should not take place. So that is further controlled by the contraction, and this contraction is maintained by the parasympathetic system. So this is how the sympathetic and parasympathetic is working together so as to control the various different functions of our body. Well, so after studying about all these different types of nervous system, now let us understand a special function of the body in which nervous system is not directly involved. We cannot say it is not involved at all. It is involved because of course nerves are functioning over there, but there is no that entire process is not needed for the purpose. So such a function in which nervous system is not involved at a very high rate is known as the reflex action. Let us just clarify what does it mean. So basically this reflex action is defined as a quick, spontaneous action which is taken automatically by an organism towards a stimulus without thinking. Now see, this thinking is it is a function. It is a function which is performed by the brain, isn't it? But in such type of functions, that is reflex action, no such type of thinking is required. It is taken quickly or spontaneously. These are certain important terms so as to define the reflex action. Quick or spontaneously means as soon as the stimulus is recognized, the action is taken. So this is what we say spontaneous action. Then it is spontaneously if it is taking, and there is no gap between receiving the stimulus and giving the response. That is why we are calling it as the automatic action. Now without thinking, there is no need for the interpretation by the mind. For example, if someone is slapping you, what will be the response? You will think about what to do. If the person who is slapping is of course powerful than you might think. But someone is they are coming over there and you don't know about the presence, and if some slap is there or some random immediate thing is happening, what is going to be your response? Either your eyes will dilate, right? Pupil will dilate, or your skin becomes red, or you will shout due to scare, or due to any such type of action would be taken or response would be given, isn't it? So that thing which is happening automatically is known as a reflex action. If a pin is pricked into your skin, what is the action? What is the response? You pull your hand back, right? You shout at once. You may say like ouch, isn't it? So all these are the reflexes which are observed here, and they don't need the thinking. They don't wait for the brain so as to interpret the data, right? We can say some examples like, if we touch a hot plate unknowingly, what is the response? We immediately take our hand away from it. A knee jerk, you are walking and knee jerk occurs. So what is the response? Your body will be imbalanced. So similarly, the diaphragm, the movement. Do you think that this movement of diaphragm needs to think about? Diaphragm has to take place, which is maintaining the breathing rate. So it is moving upward and the downward side. So that is also a sort of reflex action. Yawning, you are feeling sleepy, so you yawn. Right, you are listening to something, you may feel sleepy, you will start yawning. That yawning is not in your control. Even when someone is sitting in front of you and that person yawns over there, it happens that even you start yawning at that time. It's a reflex action. Coughing. If some cough is there, you just start coughing over there, isn't it? So these are certain examples which are explained under this particular thing. Now further, we can even say like when you are going somewhere, something goes into your eyes. What happens? Tears come out. You close your eyes. You're not able to open it. It becomes red. So all these are happening automatically. So this is how they are actually. These are certain examples of the reflex action. Now when this reflex action is taking place, it is passing through a particular route. It is following a route so as to take the action. For example, the message is received and then interpreted, and then immediate action is taken without involving the brain usually. Then in such case, it is this path which is followed between the receiving of a particular stimulus and then giving a response. So this particular path is known as the reflex arc and is comprised of various parts here. So in short, we can say this particular reflex arc is actually it is the route which is followed by the nerve impulse. We said it is from where? From stimulus to the site of action. So this particular entire path is who is actually commanding this thing, who is controlling, who is conveying the message? That is the nerves only, isn't it? So the path is actually followed by what? By the nerve impulse. So such a path which is followed by the nerve impulse so as to respond to a particular stimulus in an automatic manner is known as the reflex arc. Now these reflexes or the reflex action or the reflex arc, they can be of two types. It can be either a spinal reflex or the cerebral reflex. If there is a involvement of the spinal cord in taking the action, it is known as the spinal reflexes. If the brain is involved, then in such case it is known as the cerebral reflex, or even it can be known as the cranial reflex. Let us say, for example, we can explain this reflex arc as well as the reflex action. See, this is the structure of a spinal cord here, which is present inside the this vertebral column, and then it is associated with a particular site. Let us say how it is functioning here. See, here it is a skin. Now skin is having the receptor and a pin is pricked over this particular site. Now this site which is having the receptor for the touch. Now this message or this stimulus will be actually received by the dendrites of the or the nerves of the the part of the nerve over there. Now which nerve? It will be a sensory neuron. This sensory neuron will convey the message towards the spinal cord. Now here in the spinal cord, the message would be transferred to the another motor nerve, as we had said that this particular structure is associated with the motor nerve and the sensory nerve, right? And a pair is arising on either side. So one side is this, similarly another side is also going to have a particular sensory neuron, and towards this side it will be having a motor nerve. So the message would be conveyed to the motor neuron through a relay neuron, and then the message is transmitted to the target site. That means the muscles which are associated with this particular site in the skin. So those muscles, they are known as the effector muscles. So these effector muscles, now they are actually going to respond. And what will be the response? These muscles will contract automatically, and you are going to pull your hand or the site wherever the pin was pricked. You will just move it back aside. So this is how this particular cycle is happening when the reflex action is taking place. We simply say a pin pricks in our finger and we pull our hand back. But how it is happening? It is by recognizing this particular stimulus by the sensory neuron. Then the message is transmitted to the spinal cord. Then it is relayed through the relay nerve to the motor neuron, and then transmitted to the effector site where the action is actually taken. So this is how the reflex action or the spinal reflex is taking place. Here we are calling it as a spinal reflex because it is associated with the spinal cord. There are certain reflex actions in which the brain is also involved, like the and those are known as the cerebral reflex action. Now the example of this is the one which is actually linked with the auditory stimulus or the visual stimulus. Suppose something is going into your eye, so that is an example, you are responding to it. So that is an example of the cerebral reflex action. So this is all about the this particular thing, and further we are going to continue with the next part, that is the endocrine system. So thank you so much. Have a nice day. We'll meet you soon in the next session.